Most people think that the animals they own will forget or even never remember them. They don't communicate for a long time, but some animals are so loyal that they will never forget you even if years pass. Now I have compiled the reunions of animals that never forget their owners even if years pass. Let's start if you are ready. A woman named Linda Kobner rescued these chimpanzees from an institution that was conducting experiments and tests on them. After rescuing these chimpanzees, which had never seen the sun in their lives, when she took them to their natural habitat, it was very difficult for these animals, which had never seen light or even stepped on grass, to adapt to their natural environment. When everything around them was unfamiliar to them, Linda stayed with them and took care of them for years to help them adapt to their natural environment. After 25 years later, when Linda went back to see the chimpanzees again, she thought they wouldn't remember her.
Remember me?
But 25 years later, they still remembered Linda. All these chimpanzees had not forgotten the woman who had rescued them and taught them everything about their nature. They all gave Linda a big hug and she could not hold back her tears. Look at the frustration of this little dog, it's really sad. This cow, which he thought was his mother, was sold to someone else. The owner, seeing the dog suffering, brought the cow back, and here are the heartwarming moments of reunion. This lovely friend's name is Pakita. She had a loving family. Unfortunately, one day she ran away from home and couldn't find her way and started living on the streets. For 3 years, her family was always looking for her. Pakita was living in the shelter without being adopted by anyone in 3 years. Seeing her photos in the shelter on the internet, her family immediately contacted the shelter. 3 years had passed, and that's why Pakita didn't remember them. When she came side by side with her family, at first she hesitated. She was unsure and nervous, but when she smelled this man, she realized that it was her family that she lost 3 years ago, and she was very happy and hugged her owner. It was a really emotional reunion. The next reunion is very interesting because it is not a reunion we are used to. This cute German Shepherd starts growling as if he is going to attack the person in front of him. But what he actually does is to get angry with him because the person in front of him has not been at home for a long time. Animals have characters and emotions like people. This giant lion's name is Jupiter. He is a male and he is called the Kissing Lion, a nickname given to him because of the love he showed his mother. Jupiter was a tortured lion who started his life in a circus. Mother Julia Torres rescued Jupiter from the circus and took him to her home. But unfortunately, in 2019, the authorities realized that Torres did not have the proper documentation to keep Jupiter and took him away from her. Exactly 1 year later, Jupiter was found emaciated in his new home, clearly not well cared for, not fed enough, and living a life so bad that he was at risk. Torres, who had many supporters behind her, took the necessary steps to claim that this new place was not suitable for Jupiter. Torres still stood by him, even though years have passed. He is now in the Sale Zoo, but he is very well cared for and his mother visits him almost every day. Next up, we have a sweet bear. Her name is Sonia. She was orphaned very early in her life and was taken into care by the Otis Wildlife Center in New York City. This man named Jonathan was one of her caretakers, but he had a different bond with her because Jonathan was the one who spent the most time with her. Years went by and Sonia grew up and Jonathan hadn't worked there for a long time, so when Jonathan came back to see her, he was sure she would remember him, and she did. And as soon as she saw Jonathan, she remembered him. She was ecstatic. She even remembered the game they used to play when she was a puppy. That's really impressive. Now there is a leopard. This leopard's name is Kuma. This man named Alberto Lina rescued Kuma from the hands of an illegal trader and lived a much better life thanks to Alberto raising and caring for Kuma for about 2.5 years. Alberto found a facility for him to live safely and gave him to Alberto with peace of mind. 13 years had passed, and when Alberto went back to check on him, Kuma remembered Alberto. In fact, he remembered him so fast that it was as if he had seen him yesterday, not 13 years ago. As Alberto walked along the fence, the sandal reached out a hand and followed Alberto to the gate. It is very difficult to tame a leopard, but Alberto seems to have done it out of love, because most leopards might see this movement as a sign of attack. But how can I forget the man who saved the sandal's life? I am sure he is grateful to him for the rest of his life. See how a pack of wolves greet their owners they haven't seen for only 2 months. Aaron Morris had his car stolen, and inside it was what was most precious to him, his beloved dog, little Jolene. Found abandoned in another state and now finally home. This lion had plans to run on the grass when he was released, but when he heard the voice of his owner, whom he hadn't seen for years, he fell down in excitement. Next up is this little girl, Tansy Aspinall. Tansy had a very unique childhood because the gorillas you see here are her brother and sister. These gorillas who lived with Tansy were released into the wild when she grew up because the goal was to rehabilitate these gorillas and let them live a wild life as they should. After 12 years, Tansy was able to go into the jungle to find these gorillas. They not only remembered her and gave her a big hug, they were so happy to see her again. It was really touching to see the gorillas who didn't want to leave Tansy for a long time. This man's dog had been missing for 3 days, and they were beginning to think he was dead, never imagining that this sweet little dog was stuck in a ditch. This man was only going to feed the swan, but the swan wanted to show his gratitude. It had been 3 years since the man had saved her from poachers. This baby elephant was so happy to see the woman who used to take care of him to the zoo that he couldn't stop kissing her. Which reunion was the most emotional? Don't forget to write in the comments and like the video.